Well, first of all, what kind of mythical powers does a Sun Devil have? We got to consider that.
Now, Terrell, run the road again!
Hey guys! Hey! I'm having a press conference, okay?
Their fat little girlfriends have some obvious advantages. For one thing, their fat little girlfriends are telling them what they want to hear.
It's Division I football! It ain't intramurals!
How's that for an intro to a first episode? What do you think of that?
I love it. We're ready to go. It's football season.
Oh, it is football season. I'm very excited to get started. Welcome. This is the first episode of the newly revamped Hoppy Huddle podcast. Today we're doing SEC previews, and boy, am I excited.
I'm real excited, and I have to admit, I'm on the road today. And I'm live from Auburn, Alabama, and it's not because I have any special in with the Auburn football team. I did drive by their practice facility about 30 minutes ago.
How was it looking?
It was a drive-by. The grass looked good. The privacy fence was up, and that was
okay.
Up to it. So, but we're down here for other reasons, as you know, moving your brother in. But yeah, it was a beautiful day in Auburn, very hot, and it just reminds me of, hey, we're ready to go for football season.
Yeah. So today, obviously, we're talking about the SEC, a newly revamped SEC with Texas and Oklahoma joining. Obviously, it's an insanely stacked conference, especially at the top, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, essentially. So, do you just want to go ahead and get on into it?
Yeah. I think this is going to be fun this year. Boy, I mean, you talk about some great, if you look at the schedule, we've got some great games this year. You know, the East, the divisions are gone, so Georgia can't play the cupcakes anymore. They've actually got to play some games.
Well, they can still play cupcakes.
They can still play a few cupcakes. I mean, and then, you know, when we get to other conferences, you're going to realize other conferences are kind of hurt because they're playing more conference games. The SEC still only plays 8 conference games, so they get an extra win. So some of their records are still going to look a little inflated when you look at, let's say, the Big Ten, when we look at maybe, I think, later this week or next week. But you know, this conference is going to give us week after week, going to give us some great games, and we'll get into those in a little bit.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have some huge matchups that you wouldn't see very often, like Oklahoma at Auburn, Georgia, Texas. Like there's going to be some crazy matchups of places that you wouldn't normally think would play each other, but, you know, now they're in the conference, and there's just so many good teams. It's almost like impossible. I feel like there's 6 teams that could win the conference, and there's no teams that could win the conference just because of how good the conference is and how hard some of these schedules are.
Yeah, you're going to have – there's definitely – some tiers here, I think, and you've got a top tier here of 6 or so teams that are all going to be battling at the top, and then of course you've got a few down at the bottom, and then we'll get to all those. But this is an exciting conference. I'm looking forward to game day, and I'm actually going to be in one of the big games of the year already. Kick us off. I'm going to be there in a few weeks. Looking forward to see that Miami Florida game. We'll talk about that.
Okay, all right. So let's I think we can go ahead and get started with the favorite to win the conference, the absolute loaded monster that is Georgia Bulldogs. And boy, are they loaded. They may not have won the national title last year, but there were a lot of statistics that say they might have been one of the best. They were one of the best teams in the country, and they might have who knows how they would have performed in the playoff. But boy, so you got Carson Beck is back. He's a Heisman contender for sure. And Brock Bowers is gone, but they definitely replaced him with, well, I don't know, maybe they'll replace him in the aggregate, like Moneyball. But, they've got Oscar Delp, who's the number 1 tight end, and some more fantastic receiving threats. The Miami transfer, and also Ra Thomas as well. They've got a surprising amount of people back for how loaded they are
because of the arrest. So he's gone.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Jake, you're right. This team is fully loaded. They're with Carson back. You add, ETN and running back, which Florida's a little salty about. I mean, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
So you run behind that offensive line. And I don't disagree with anything you're saying. And so we could just say, hey, pencil Georgia in for a great record. But here's the issue, I think, and this is what we've got to see. I think it is the wide receiver and tight ends. They have a lot of talent at tight end, but you're replacing Ladd, McConkey, and Bowers, and I don't think those are just they're great receivers.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're replacing really the heart and soul of that offense. Can you replace those guys? I mean, what was the game? Was it I don't think it was it the South Carolina game? One of the games I can't recall as we were watching, that basically just went to Bowers play after play after play.
It was Auburn, I think, right?
Was it?
Didn't
Yeah, I think
Browers
it was
just
the
take
Auburn.
over the Auburn game?
Yeah, I think it was the Auburn game. You're right. And so does he have that? We all know Beck's super talented. He's going to be an NFL quarterback. He's my prediction for player of the year of the SEC. But does he have the guys that are going to step up in those moments where they're going to have some tough games? And we'll go through the schedule in a minute.
Yeah.
Does he have the McConkey? Does he have the Bowers? Is one of those guys on that team going to step up? And without Ra Thomas, all of a sudden I'm getting a little bit more concerned. Are they going to make the plays? And if you have that person, then all of a sudden this team looks just as good, if not better, than last year's. Are they 2017-28 Georgia? Maybe not, but they're certainly one of the favorites, not only to win this conference but the national championship.
Yeah. It's interesting. On offense, they got 75% returning production, which for a lot of teams is pretty, it's pretty standard. But for Georgia, that's a lot because usually they lose most of their production to the NFL every year. And they got that fantastic left tackle. I'm forgetting his name. I think it's Green. Yeah. Ernest Green, right?
Yeah, they got so many people on. I lose track of them.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, like their offensive line is going to be really good. And their defense, again, will be really good. You are right. It's the receivers is the big question mark. And they have talent. It's just, does that talent materialize into, plays?
They recruit so well. There's just depth here. It's just is back. And maybe it's the collective is going to be good enough. But is it really someone when you're down, when you're playing at Bama or at Texas or at Ole Miss, is there going to be someone that you're going to go to 2 or 3 or 4 times when you need it in a tough spot? And is that going to be the difference between a win and a loss? That's my key for this Georgia team this year.
Yeah. Now, I agree with you there.
They've got 8 wins, just pencil it in. They've got 4 tough games. Now, they start off the season with Clemson in a neutral site game, neutral in Atlanta. That's a joke.
Well, I mean, Clemson's close to Atlanta too, so it's not like it's Ohio State in Atlanta.
But it's Atlanta. It's a home in Georgia, and we give Clemson a slight chance, but Georgia's probably going to win that game. Then do you disagree?
No, I mean Georgia's. I think they're favored by like 12.5, 13.5, something like that. So
Clemson. We'll get to them in our ACC preview. And Clemson may be good, but our first year, are they going to be? I don't know. They're going to be ready to pull that upset. So then you get to the rest of their schedule. They got an FCS opponent. They got UMass, which might as well be an FCS school. They've got 8 wins.
Seriously,
you get to 3 opponents, and they're all 3 on the road: at Bama, at Texas, and at Ole Miss.
That's a stretch.
Now they spread them out. They've got some bye weeks around, before Bama. Can they win 2 of those 3?
Yeah, I mean I would say probably yes. But yeah, Ole Miss. What was the order again? It was
they got Bama at the end of September at Bama. Then they get at Texas later in October, and then they've got Ole Miss 1st of November.
Yeah. So
they're
I don't know. I think they probably. I would say Georgia's probably talented enough. I think they do. I think part of it again will depend on the Alabama transition and how that goes. But
I see them no worse than 10-2, more likely 11-1. They'll probably drop one of those 3 games. Would be my guess.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So they're. I think you're right, Jake. They are a favorite to win this conference. I think they're one of my co-favorites up there, depending on how other games break down.
Yeah. And they definitely have the highest odds or the lowest odds to win the national title game. So
we expect
that they're definitely a favorite conference, favorite for the title. It'll just completely depend on basically the 3 essentially big games that they have to play and how those shake out.
Yeah. And you get what Bam, and we'll talk about Bam. We'll talk about we'll talk about more about this game as we get to those other 3 teams, because the other 3 teams are contenders as well.
Yeah. All right. That's kind of what I got there. What team would we going to go to next?
Well, let's go out to I'll throw out my second favorite conference champion. I think let's go to Texas, brand new in the SEC this year.
Yeah. So Texas, my thoughts with Texas is, I mean, Sark is maybe the best play caller in an individual situation in the country. He's an offensive genius, and that's pretty clear at this point. He has fantastic quarterback in Quinn Ewers, weapons out wide, and 4 offensive line starters returning. So their offense is not going to be the problem. Yes, they lose speed on the receivers, but they bring in new receivers as well. Isaiah Bond from Alabama is probably he was the number 1 overall transfer player. Texas brought him in. He's going to be good. Texas has skill. Their offense on basically is hard to find a flaw in anywhere. The real question is their defense. Now, last year, their pass defense was questionable at best. It was 116th in the country, which is not what you expect for a playoff team and a SEC contender. So does that pass defense improve? Probably, I would say so. It's hard to get much worse, but they're talented up front. They lose a couple players to the draft that I think they still should be good up front. They were exceptional against the run last year, but it's really Texas comes down to the unknowns at least. Is the pass defense going to be up to snuff to stop Carson Beck, to stop Alabama, to stop Ole Miss, to stop these teams that have explosive passing attacks?
Yeah, well, I'll say this on the passing defense. You're right. The raw stats were good last year. I think when you actually look at the opponent adjusted numbers, they weren't as bad as it looks. I mean, some of it was the opponents knew they could run the ball last year, so they threw more. So when you adjust it for opponents, they actually ranked 16th out of the 70 Power 5 schools. So they weren't that bad. I just think raw numbers look worse. For me, there's a couple of, I sound like I'm already the contrarian every time we talk. One, losing CJ Baxter this week was a big loss. And I know it's a running back, and Sark has recruited really well at that position. He recruits 2 a year. And I know Blue is probably going to be the guy that's going to step up, but they were really counting on Baxter. So to me, that maybe, is that going to hurt him? We don't know yet, but I think they were really counting on Baxter. Bond is a big pickup, as you mentioned. And then you get to Ewers. Okay. I've liked Quinn Ewers, but we need to see him take that. There are moments at times where I just wonder, is he going to get them all the way? Is everybody just going to be so good around him that he doesn't need to take that step, or are we going to need to see him take another step to really get them to a national championship? They do have Arch Manning in the background. I know that'll help us with our algorithm.
Of course.
But, how is Quinn going to play this year in the full SEC? We're going to see. I think he's a pretty good quarterback, and I think he's going to be fine. But there's always just that lingering, is he going to have a bad game or two? Their schedule. So, I think the defense, you've got some issues there. You're trying to replace Sweat on the line, but I think they did so well both in the portal and I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to be really good this year. They're one of my co-favorites. The schedule is pretty okay. They've got Oklahoma, which they play every year, which we know that. They get Georgia at home. They get, Florida's a talented team, although Florida's schedule is brutal. We'll talk about that later. But Florida is a talented team. Other than that, they go on the road to Michigan early in the season, and I think that's probably better to play Michigan early. I still think Michigan's going to be working through their quarterback. Other than that, their schedule is pretty manageable. They get at Texas A&M at the end of the year, renewing that rivalry. How good is
that's going to be fun.
That's always could be a banana peel game. But I think the schedule is very favorable for Texas in this first year, unlike some other schools. So I think this, to me, I think they could end up 11-1. They've got an 11-1 path here on their schedule. 10-2, 11-1. It seems to be where I think they may end up.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I don't know. Texas going into the SEC. Texas, historically, as I know Sark's changed some of this, but as a program, they very often just when they face high talented competition, they've kind of folded, and they proved that wrong last year against Alabama. But that was one game. This time you have to face high talented competition like five times, probably. You know,
5
with
times? Really?
4 times, 4. I guess
You count
high talent, not just.
Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Kentucky.
Yeah, Arkansas is going to be jazzed for that game. You know they will. So
Listen, at that point, it's going to be the end of November. Arkansas may not even have a head coach.
that's true. Pittman might be gone there. I don't know.
So-
I mean, well, you got Michigan as well, though. Michigan's no pushover.
No, and that's a week 2 matchup. That would be fun to watch.
So I don't know. I think probably you're right, but I think there's a chance. There's a higher chance than Georgia that they slip up a couple of times.
Yeah. They really they don't have a tough road game. I mean, they've got, 1, 2, 3, 4 road games at Michigan, at Vandy. Does that really count? At Arkansas and at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
this
A&M is going to be tough. A&M is going to be tough.
A&M will be tough. But Georgia comes to them, Florida comes to them, Oklahoma's in Texas, Dallas. They know how to play that game. So this year was setting up for a national championship run. I think
this is a year.
Doesn't loss on Baxter push them over a little bit? Is that I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, see, I have faith in Sark making a running back work. I feel like at the top level, running backs are more interchangeable than other positions because it depends on your offensive line so much, and their O-line is good.
Yeah.
So they've had 1,000-yard rusher, 3 consecutive seasons now. I think even without Baxter, the running back position will be okay.
Well, you remember Brooks went down last year and Baxter stepped up. So So you're probably right, but I would have liked to have had Baxter and Blue in the backfield, and I think that would have given them the full complement to really attack this conference.
Yeah. All right.
Any questions on Twitch yet, or we got nobody following us?
No, we got nobody live. Hey, but if you're watching this recorded after the fact, make sure to subscribe, like, and follow us on Twitch so you can catch the live streams and ask questions in the chat.
And we hope to be on YouTube maybe within a week or so.
Yeah, we'll be live on YouTube next week after we get some difficulties figured out. Make sure to follow us on Spotify, The Hoppy Huddle. Follow us on Instagram, The Hoppy Huddle, and follow me on Twitter at Real Hopster, and where I post mostly boring takes about Baylor football. And all right, so next up, who do you wanna go to next? Ole Miss?
Sure, let's go to Ole Miss.
All right, the Lane Train himself. Ole Miss is really chips all in this year. They spent in the transfer portal. They still lost Judkins to Ohio State, but Ohio State was just basically saying F it, we ball, and throwing unlimited cash at whoever they wanted. So they'll be okay. They brought in 2 good transfer running backs, as well as a couple transfer receivers. I think the number 3 transfer receiver as well. The real question is, can Jackson Dart be great in the big game? Because Ole Miss beat up on everybody they were supposed to last year, and they lost to everybody they were supposed to last year. And Jackson Dart was fantastic against lesser competition, but against good defenses, he struggled more. And Jackson Dart, he's talented. He has the potential, and maybe, if he has done some growth this offseason, and along with better players, because the amount of people they brought in the transfer portal, that's what's going to determine Ole Miss this season, is how well can Jackson Dart play in the big games. The big transfer was, of course, the defensive line, Walter Nolan, the number 2 overall or number 1 overall, depending on your service, player in the 22 or 23 class?
22.
I think it was 22 class. Went to A&M. She's transferred to Ole Miss. He's a beast on the defensive line, and Ole Miss struggled a little on the line last year on defense, so that will massively help. And this is their cash-in year. It's all chips in. Lane Kiffin, Portal King himself. We'll see.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, this has been the knock against Ole Miss and Lane, is that they're beating people they're supposed to beat, but they've got to win a big game. And this is the year. I mean, you forget it. They got Walter Nolan. They also got Princely, and I'm gonna butcher his last name.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah,
Uma, whatever, from Florida. So they really made a commitment to the line. you think about their wide receivers. You got Juice Wells and Trey Harris. I don't know if you played EA, the college football game in 25, but Trey Harris doesn't drop a ball. I hope it's like that in the real life. You know, I think you're right. I mean, Quinshon Judkins, I mean, if he could have stayed here, this offense would have been unstoppable. So I'm a little concerned about running back with this team. Jackson Dart has to be good in the big games. I mean, they just got steamrolled last year when they came to Georgia and Alabama.
Yep.
The schedule, this is another one, kind of like Texas. The schedule is very favorable. I mean, they've got to play at LSU, but I don't think there's no Jaden Daniels at LSU this year. Okay, so that's a winnable game. Oklahoma, which I believe is going to be down this year a little bit, comes to them. Georgia comes to them. Florida, they go on the road to Florida late in the year, but we don't know what kind of Florida team that's going to be late in the year. Other than, I mean, the rest of their schedule, very manageable. So this schedule sets, unlike other schools, I mean, Georgia, we talked about how it actually has a hard schedule. Ole Miss doesn't when you compare, in comparatively speaking. So this is the year. This is the year they can go win the SEC. And if Jackson Dart steps up the competition, if they can go out and prove they can win these big games, and this defense, if Pete Golding's defense can step up and give them just a little bit better, particularly against the rush, which is where they were the weakest last year, and that's why Alabama and Georgia have to rob them. I mean, this is not only an SEC champion, this is a playoff contender. And I think that would make folks down there thrilled. So this is it. This is your chance, Ole Miss. Let's do it. I want to see you do it.
Yeah. I am a little bit down on Pete Golding. And I know he's from the Saban tree and he was Saban's golden boy and whatever, but like I don't get the Pete Golding hype. He's had pretty okay defenses with pretty great talent at Alabama and Ole Miss, and we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll see. They will be fun to watch, and we've got some good matchups this year, particularly Georgia and Oklahoma and LSU and Florida. Those should be fun games to get to. I will say this. We are not making playoff predictions on this episode. We're going to save our playoff predictions till right before the week 1. So we're going to just go down the conference.
Stay tuned.
We're going to talk about this conference only and talk about records and who might win it. Then we'll go through all the other conferences, and then we'll get to a playoff prediction show kind of wrapping up the season right before week 1 kicks off. Not week 0, because there's really only one game week 0 that matters. But we'll get to it before week.
Gotcha. All right. Let's see here. I think we gotta talk about Alabama.
That's where I was going to go next. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
okay.
I think we got to talk about Alabama. It's the elephant in the room.
Season? Did any big changes with Alabama?
It's the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Literally. Nick Saban is gone, and that's huge. Now, I respect Nick Saban as a great coach, but it does feel nice that he is no longer there destroying everyone. And it seems like there's a lot more competitors in the conference this year because he's not there. Now, Kirby's kind of taken up that role, but Kirby is not Saban. Saban was the next level. He was the greatest coach of all time. There's really no contest there. And now, Kalen DeBoer, you have to live up to that. So good luck. No, but Kalen DeBoer, I mean, he's won everywhere he's been. He brought with him Ryan Grubb from Washington, who was his play caller, and Grubb
came with him, and then Grubb like a month later.
Yeah, that's my bad. I got mixed up. I was like, I thought Grubb was it, and then not. So we'll see. Their roster's good. They lost Julian Sayin, but I still think their roster's pretty good. Milroe can run the ball, and I think DeBoer will cook up some, interesting offensive schemes. Yeah, so you got Womack, because he was the UAB guy who beat Oklahoma State last year 38-0, which was crazy. But he's now the defensive coordinator at there, and the question is, it's like, I don't know, they're super talented, but can DeBoer continue what Saban started?
Yeah, it's hard when you look at. There's not a lot of carryover here when you look at last year into this year, other than Milroe. I mean, they lost their top 2 running backs. they lost their top 3 receivers. You got Roydale Williams, their second best back, is over at Florida State now. Bond, we talked about, is at Texas. So there was a lot of you look over at Caleb Downs on the defensive side, is over at Ohio State. I mean, there was a lot of turnover, and of course you got the normal draft picks. So while you look at everything from last year's team and go, maybe this is a different team, and Kalen's going to coach it differently. So it's hard to tell. You got Jalen Milroe. Well, what was our criticism of Milroe last year? He clearly can run the ball. He has some nice touch on the deep balls, but he wasn't real good on the short stuff, on the accurate on the short balls.
Yeah.
So are they going to be able to design an offense that can work around those skills and make him productive? I think they can. I think Kalen DeBoer has shown at his other levels of coaching that he takes the tools that he has and turns it into effective offense. I think there's enough talent on this team from a recruiting standpoint to do that. The question is how they're not going to get a lot of time, a leeway here to do this. They got about 3 games, and then they play Georgia, so they better figure this thing out fast.
Yeah,
and is it going to come together? So I yes, probably, but I also don't think this is this an 11-1 team? I don't know. They got Georgia coming into Bama. Then they have to go to Tennessee. They have to go at LSU. They have to go at Oklahoma. And then, of course, they've got Auburn. So it's not a cakewalk schedule. Of course, they got Mercer kicked in. I'm glad they're playing Mercer. Yeah. Heaven forbid these SEC teams play 9 conference games, especially in November when we all want to watch college football. So, I mean, I think this is probably still an 11-1, 10-2 team, just given the schedule, but it's not going to be as easy. And there's going to be a couple losses there, and if that loss to Georgia's early this season, how quickly do they lose confidence in them, or is there another loss in there just because it's not Nick?
Yeah, that's kind of, it's hard to quantify like the impact of like not being Nick Saban will have, because DeBoer is a fantastic coach, but the funny example that I saw in during spring practice was they allowed reporters in to walk around, and then there was just music blaring, and I'm like, that is a shift from Nick Saban, like just music at practice, reporters walking around, so it's kind of a different vibe, and I don't know. They have talent. Can DeBoer not? They lost a lot of their starting talent, but they were still recruited well, so their backups are not not horrible. But how does that translate? It's a big question mark. I really don't know. It could turn out they could go win 11 games. But it's just you kind of don't know.
Yeah, I think it's hard to find. You can't find 4 losses on the schedule. 3 losses would be pretty bad. That means they're losing to Georgia. They're probably losing to Tennessee. And then you're finding another loss between Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma, and Auburn. Maybe.
I could see. You could see it though.
But we're going to get to Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma, and Auburn, and I think those schools, they all have some flaws, and I just think Alabama is probably fundamentally better than all 4 of those. Probably,
yeah.
There's some, and maybe LSU at LSU, because that's always a bugaboo for them there down there, but again, there's no Jaden Daniels, and I don't have the faith in Nussmeier, but we'll get to them in a minute.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about Tennessee. The Nico era is here. The Nico Aimalieva era is here. They say that 3 times fast.
Yes.
But so Josh Heupel has had great offenses multiple years in a row. He now has a 5-star blue chip plus premium gold star quarterback. Does that translate into an offense that can win a lot of games against teams that have more talent than them? Which is, crazy, but, it's Tennessee. So they have lots of talent. It's just, are they going to compete with the big boys? I think, who was the wide receiver that got injured last year?
McCoy.
Brew McCoy, right. They have Brew McCoy. The secondary is kind of questionable. They lost, I think, most of the starters in the secondary. They got to rebuild that. So I don't know how good their secondary will be. But again, if you're Tennessee, your goal is to just outscore everybody. So do you need a good secondary to have a good year in Tennessee? Maybe not. Their pass protection was okay last year. Could be better. How will Nico deal if, he gets sacked a couple of times, is pressured all game. It's no quarterback is ever, better, like is ever perfect under pressure, but you kind of can't simulate the real world snaps until they come. So I think Tennessee, it just comes down to Nico and how will that offense do with him in it.
Yeah. This is I'll tell you, this is going to be, I have no love lost for Tennessee personally. It's not my favorite
Yeah.
place in the world. Sorry, any Knoxville, Tennessee fans. God bless you. This is my surprise team of the year in the SEC, and it solely rests on the shoulders of Nico. I think he's really talented. I think he's this year.
You think he's the truth?
I think he's the truth, and I think they put enough talent around him, and I have enough faith in Josh Heupel. I think that alone, I think that again, we'll talk playoffs later. I think they're going to be competitive for an SEC championship this year. Now, again,
Really?
I do. I think it's all going to be on the shoulders of Nico. If Nico can live up to this hype, they can compete with anybody because they're going to score points. I think their defensive line's, going to be pretty good with Pierce. The defensive backs, you're right. I mean, but are other teams going to be able to stop them? I'm not sure other teams are.
Yeah.
This team, they're going to have an early season test at NC State, but it's really in Charlotte. So that's, they're going to have half that stadium filled at least.
Oh, yeah.
And NC State's going to be a good team. They go to Oklahoma. And again, I think Oklahoma's not terrible, but they're not going to be – that'll be a challenge. If they get past those two early on, I mean, they're going to be looking at later, that third Saturday in October against Bama. They're going to be undefeated. And, boy, and Alabama – Florida comes to them, Alabama comes to them. And if that train's rolling, good grief, now you're going to get to November 16th, and they're going to be a top 5 team in this country undefeated playing at Georgia. Okay.
That'll be a game.
I mean, yeah. So at that point, this thing could really, you look at the schedule, I'm telling you, this has the potential, if they can get this thing going. This is my surprise team. And if I say that, how much this hurts.
Yeah.
So I think they could be they to me could be the sleeper, in my opinion. If you think of a sleeper team, this is a sleeper SEC championship team. It's a sleeper playoff team.
They have a surprise team as well, but it is not Tennessee.
Yeah,
I know. And you think you know where I'm going?
Is it the next team we're going to talk about?
What is the next team we're talking about? Where are we going next?
Are we done with Tennessee? Because then you throw out.
I think we're done with Tennessee. Yeah. Where are we going?
Where do you think we're going? You throw out the next team.
All right. So this next team, this is my surprise team, who I think will be an SEC contender that I think everyone's undervaluing. They have the toughest schedule, or second toughest schedule in the conference. It's the Oklahoma Sooners.
Oh, my gosh. All right, we're going to stop this podcast right here because I cannot disagree with you more. Oh, yeah. And then I'm going to rip you to shreds.
Okay. Hear me out. I know. Their schedule's insane. But I think Jackson Arnold is the truth. And I believe in Brent Venables on defense. I think he calls the exotic blitzes really well. They've recruited like an SEC team, like top 10 recruiting classes at Oklahoma, even though the record last year didn't show it. They have talent. Jackson Arnold is good. I think Oklahoma, maybe not an SEC championship contender, but possibly a playoff contender due to how tough their schedule is and if they pull off some big wins. So let me hear what is your counterpoint to that?
Well, I don't disagree that they've recruited well. I think Venables has recruited very well. I think they have the same disease that Florida has this year, and it's the schedule. The schedule is brutal, and I just don't know how you get through the schedule and are a playoff contender. I mean, they're going to start off pretty good first few weeks, and then look at the games they've got to play. They've got to play Tennessee. They've got to go to Auburn, which is not going to be a cupcake. I don't care. It's their first big SEC road game, and going into Jordan-Hare, that's a tough place to play. Strange things happen there. Then they immediately go to Texas. They play Texas. A couple weeks later, they're playing at Ole Miss. Then they go to Missouri, which I know is everyone's favorite team. But Missouri does have talent. They have Luther Burden. Then they get back in the season. They got Alabama and go to LSU. That is a murderer's row.
It is.
I don't know how you get out of there without 3 to 4 losses, maybe 5 losses.
I think they can make the playoff as a 3-loss team.
Oh, I think. See, well, we're going to get to our play. We'll talk about this in our playoff show, but
I'm not making specific predictions, but like I do like I think, and you know how you overcome an insane schedule? You have a strong defense and a good quarterback, and that's what they have. Like,
yeah, and I guess I'm not sold on Jackson Arnold yet. I mean, Dylan Gabriel did a good job last year. I mean, you look at his stats. I mean, especially, even opponent adjusted per play, they were good. And I just don't think we saw enough of Jackson Arnold. So I guess I want to see more from him. Unlike Nico, we saw Nico in the bowl game, and Nico just looked fantastic. That's why I guess I'm a little more sold. I mean, I'm listening to you. I agree. And it's not that I hate Oklahoma. I like Oklahoma. I'm not sold on Jackson Arnold yet to make that leap, to take them to that level. And I just think the schedule is just so bad that even they could be a good team to be 7-5.
Yeah, I can see that. The reason I'm high on Oklahoma is people forget they beat Texas last year. People are so high on Texas, and I think they upgraded at quarterback. I think Arnold is better than Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, but they also lost to Kansas, Oklahoma State, and Arizona last year.
They did. That's true. So people were like, "Oh, they got to play Texas." I'm like, "Okay, they've handled Texas in that game for most of the years recently that they've played." I think people are a little too high on Texas and a little too low on Oklahoma. I think they're actually closer than people want to admit.
All right. Well, you've got a surprise team, and I've got a surprise team.
We'll see.
I'm taking notes. We're going to see at the end of the season where we go.
All right.
Now I'll tell you a team that I think people are too high.
Who?
That's the LSU Tigers.
Okay. Why?
So, well, obviously last year, if you look at their metrics offensively, they were through the chart. It was all Jaden Daniels. They have nowhere to come but come down. Okay. You look at the defense last year. Defense was just awful. Absolute statistics, yards per play, total defense, they were the worst. Out of all the 70 Power 5 teams, they were clearly the number one defense on rushing offense, passing offense, on adjusted opponents per play. But on rushing defense, they were 53rd out of 70. I mean, they were just terrible, and their passing defense was. This was a team that was leaky on the defensive level. They only won games because of Jaden Daniels, and he had a phenomenal year, Heisman Trophy, deserved every bit of it. All I see is a defense that hasn't really gotten better, and an offense that's going to be downgraded. I mean, we don't have Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas. There's no Jaden Daniels. So explain to me how, when the schedule's as tough, and you don't have Jaden Daniels, that you're going to go and remind me of their record last year. What were they? They had 1, 2, 3 losses last year. They're going to go 9-3 this year with a team that I think is worse than last year.
So I agree.
Okay, good.
I think that LSU is going to be significantly worse this year, and LSU always has talent. They're always talented. They're talent-rich state. It's Louisiana. They always have talent. But it's just cohesion that is the problem. And they didn't have cohesion last year on defense and parts of their offense that wasn't Jaden Daniels. So I don't see, maybe just another year of Brian Kelly coaching. He is kind of like, like a tough guy coach. Maybe he like beats it into them, but like I just don't see how they weren't good last year. They have on paper talent, but it didn't materialize last year. I don't see how it's going to change and materialize this year. Players will make like a year 1 to year 2 jump, but like year 2 to year 3 is not. It's usually not the year that like a whole defense makes a jump. I don't see it, and I agree with you. And I think LSU is going to be a team that everyone looks back and was like, they were like kind of good, but then they just lost to a bunch of teams that were really good.
Yeah, so, and schedule. They play USC to start the season. Everyone goes, "Oh, that's just a win." I don't know that you want to sleep on USC in the first game. It's in Vegas. I think LSU will probably win that game, but it's not a gimme.
If they lose,
if they lose, yeah, then all of a sudden you're looking at 8-4, 7-5 clearly for this team.
yeah. Imagine that as a scenario. LSU and Florida both go 7-5, and then what happens?
Well, yeah, we'll get to Florida in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thoughts on LSU. You want to hit Missouri or Texas A&M?
Let's do Missouri.
Okay.
And Missouri is Luther Burden, and Luther Burden is Missouri. He is in my opinion, the best receiver in the country, and it's not even close. He's overpowered. Not only is he overpowered in college football 25 video games, he's also overpowered in real life, where you basically just, it's like that meme when Tyreek Hill was on the Chiefs. It's like, F it, Tyreek down there somewhere. That's Mizzou's offense. F it, Luther Burden's down there somewhere. They just throw it to him every single time. Not every play, but like essentially like he's that good. You have to double him every play, and he still puts up numbers.
Yeah.
Their lines are pretty good. Their defense is pretty good. Brady Cook's their quarterback, right?
Yeah.
He's a good distributor of the ball. I think they're due for one or two upsets and a 8-win season maybe. But
this one is hard for me to figure out, because whenever a team pops up like this in a year that's not a traditional power, you kind of wonder if they're going to have an offset the next year. Part of it, I think what gets overlooked last year was how good their defense was. I mean, we talk about Luther Burden, but their defense was pretty good last year, especially among the Power 5 or now Power 4, I guess. But I mean, their passing defense was really good last year. It was 15th out of 70th, opponents adjusted per play. And, they lost 8 starters from that defense. The coordinator, Blake Baker, was hired away by LSU because LSU needed help on the defensive side. I think there's a lot of turnover on that defense. I don't know if you can just assume – everyone's assuming they're just going to be back in as a potential playoff contender down at the bottom.
I'm not willing to go that far.
Yeah, I'm not either. I mean, they've got Auburn. They're playing Auburn. They got to go to Bama. They got Oklahoma on the schedule. I mean, the schedule is manageable, though. It's October that's brutal. It's at A&M, Auburn, Alabama, and then the first start of November – Oklahoma. So if they can get through that stretch with maybe only a loss, then I think you've got the back end.
It's a big if, though.
That's a big if. I understand it's a big if. I don't think they can. I think this is a little more difficult.
Okay.
So I don't have quite the warm fuzzies that most of the media does. But then again, we aren't media. We aren't journalists. We aren't coaches. We're nothing. Yeah. We're a couple of dudes talking football. So I just don't think. I think for me, it's like there's too much hype in Missouri this year. I don't believe them as much as everybody else does.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I do, however, I can see them, while not having in the aggregate as large of as good of a season as people expect. I can say that like it would not shock me if they pulled a couple upsets, an upset or two over like teams that are significantly better than them, where just Luther Burden takes over a game like that. I could see that happening, especially because like this conference doesn't have like the greatest pass defenses in the world, kind of across the board. So I could see an upset or two for sure, but probably not sustained over the whole season.
That's November 9th against your Oklahoma team, by the way. Let me just tell you what.
Probably, yeah.
Put that one for later. I'm gonna tell you.
Especially old Big 8 rivalry.
Yes, yeah.
Renewed, but
there's your game.
Yeah, well, we'll see. All right, you want to hit A&M now?
Yeah, let's hit A&M. So, what do you think of the coaching hire? Okay.
So, as a Baylor fan, I am angry because I like Mike Elko, and I think Mike Elko is a fantastic hire. So, Baylor and A&M being very close geographically, there's a lot of little nudging going on there. I think Elko is a fantastic hire. What I specifically love is the offensive coordinator hire of Colin Klein. He did wonders at Kansas State and was criminally underrated in my opinion. And I think he will be fantastic at A&M. It comes out of Connor Wegman. He was, injured on and off last year. I think he's good. I'm not quite sure. Like, it's a little unclear. A&M's got talent, but they've always had talent, and it just hasn't worked. Jimbo. But I think Elko is much better manager of people. I think he's much better manager of games. Jimbo had critical game management issues that held A&M back for years. Also, there were little whispers that people just didn't like working with him. And that's the opposite of what people hear about Mike Elko. Everybody loves Mike Elko. He won at Duke. So if you win at Duke, you're probably a winner. So I think they'll probably do pretty good. I just don't know if it all turns around in year one. And I think how well they do in year one is probably dependent on how good Wegman actually is.
Yeah. I like Connor Wegman.
And
I
if he
think
can
when
stay
he was
healthy.
playing for them, I thought he did a good job. Obviously the injury kind of set him back, and that's when they started to struggle. But I'd like him, and I think if he's healthy, I think they will be pretty good. I mean, they get Notre Dame out of the box, which is not easy. It is at home. And of course, Notre Dame lost their left tackle this week, which is a big loss for them because they don't have anybody to replace him. So that may
I didn't see that. They did?
Yeah. He tore his pec this week, and I'm not going to remember his name. I heard it, but he tore his pec, and they literally don't have a replace him. So I think that's a huge loss for Notre Dame. I think that makes that game a little bit more interesting. They get off to a win, and then they go to Florida September 14th. Again, we're going to get to Florida in a minute. They win that game. All of a sudden, they're rolling into Missouri 5-0. You get a little momentum. Remember, this is a talented roster. They did lose a lot in the transfer portal. But I think the one great thing about Elko, and I think he showed it in other places, is that he's going to build a culture here. And this is kind of like Tennessee for me. I don't love Texas A&M, but I do like Mike Elko, and I think he was a good hire. I think people are going to look back and be very happy that he hired. So that they hired him. So I think this is a good hire. I think they can go. I think they're 7-5. 8-4 would be a great year. I don't think they're going to fall off the cliff. I don't think they're going to be terrible, but I don't expect a playoff berth. But there's some wins there, and if this thing could get rolling, who knows what could happen?
Yeah, I agree. I noticed we've got 2 viewers in the chat, so if you want to drop some questions in there, we can answer them in the show anytime you like. So,
we want to go through.
Okay,
we probably got about 15 minutes left. We want to kind of cover the rest. We still got Florida and Auburn to cover.
Yeah, let's kind of roll through the rest. I have behind Missouri. I think I have in the order of what I think people will finish. We've kind of gone in order here a little bit. Let's talk about Auburn real quick. What are your thoughts on Auburn?
Yeah, I think Auburn. I'm excited about what they're building down there. I like Coleman at wide receiver. I think you even look at what he's doing in recruiting in the 25 class. I mean, he is building something here, and I think 25 is the year to really watch Auburn. This year they get a lot of front-loaded games in September at home, including Oklahoma. So, this is, you could get some momentum on their schedule before they hit the road to play at Georgia and at Missouri. To me, their schedule, they come down to whether is Peyton Thorne, is he going to get the job done at quarterback? Can Hugh Freeze and this offense, can Cam Coleman, can these young wide receivers, are they going to be able to do enough with, I think, with Thorne to be in these games? And if they can, then I think there's some wins on that count. They could be 8-4. They really could be. I believe. Yeah. I believe in the schedule because they've only really got, in my mind, they've got 2 tough road games at Georgia and at Missouri. And then they got Oklahoma coming there. Well, I'm sorry, and Alabama too. Sorry, Bama fans.
Yeah,
but this is there's some wins there if things get rolling, and if not, I still think 7-5 wouldn't be terrible. But I think there's some good things happening to this program.
Yeah, I agree. Cam Coleman is a definite difference maker on day one. Just you see there. You see his highlights. He is fantastic. The real question is, do we get old Peyton Thorne or new Peyton Thorne? Because old Peyton Thorne was actually pretty good when he had a good team around him at Michigan State. New Peyton Thorne was making bad decisions, just, not quite as fantastic. So I do see that, they can pull some upsets, have a good season, 7-5, continue to build with Hugh Freeze. The offense really turned around last year when Hugh Freeze took over play calling. I think that will continue this year. He's shown that he always gets up for big games, so it would not surprise me if they pulled an upset over one of their 2 rivals, Alabama or Georgia. It would be a little surprising, but they played Georgia close last year, and even though they had that bad loss to New Mexico State, Hugh Freeze schemes out big games pretty well. So I don't know. We got a question in the chat. The Flaming Swan tuning in from Louisiana. His question is, what do y'all think about Georgia Southern this year?
Well, this is an SEC preview, so I haven't done any breakdowns yet on Georgia Southern. So, I don't have any real great opinions on some of the group of 5 schools yet. So how about that, Jake? Do you have any?
Yeah. So I have not looked into Georgia Southern that much as well. I'm guessing that's my friend Steph Juan from the conference I just went to for business, but I guess he went to Georgia Southern. So
yeah, this is
I'm
an SEC
guessing.
show. We have to take questions, but I've not done any. I've not looked at the group of 5 yet. So
yeah, I think we're gonna do like a kind of group of 5 general overview mixed in with Notre Dame at like some point into one of these episodes.
Yes.
But
thanks for listening. Thanks for being
yes. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for listening.
I thought he was going to ask LSU. I was ready to go in on LSU. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So
we got to get to Florida.
Yeah, let's go to Florida real quick. Florida, horrible, insane schedule. It's really tragic because their recruiting has been pretty good, and Napier, I think, is on the general upward trend, sort of. But like, if he can just get through this year and not get fired, I think this incoming freshman class will become sophomores, and I think Florida can really turn it around. The real question is, how do you just not get fired with this insane schedule?
Yeah, it's hard because they're out of the gate with Miami, who I think is going to be one of the, I think everybody thinks is one of the preseason ACC champions and the playoff contender. You then get Texas A&M, which we just talked about. That's not an easy game. Then you go on the road to Tennessee, which 2 years ago they struggled in there in that environment. I mean, and then you get to November, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State. Good grief! So if you can just get to November and have a winning record, this schedule's brutal. And Billy Napier seems like a great guy. They're recruiting well. This season is going to depend on Graham Mertz, and Graham really played well last year. But he also had Ricky Pearsall. Can they take it to another level? Do they have enough talent around him? Because this defense, this was a dreadful defense last year. If you look out of the Power 5, out of the 70 Power 5 schools last year, they're rushing with 65 out of 70 on adjusted opponents per play. I mean, they were bad. So they've got to get better defensively. They've got to be better offensively to compete with these teams. I want to believe that they're going to get to 6-6 or 7-5, and Napier can continue to build. This schedule's just hard. It really is. I mean, and if they lose to Miami and Texas A&M in September, we may see them just fall off at the end of the year. I hope not. But it's going to be a rough road for them, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. It comes down to how well Mertz plays. He kind of surprised me and a lot of people last year how efficient he was, and he played pretty well. But it's can you do that against all of these good teams year long with less weapons than last year? And if he can, then I think Florida can maybe get to 7 wins as a ceiling. But
that would be a high ceiling. And you have to remember, they have the number 1 quarterback in the 24 class on campus now, who's Gatorade Player of the Year, DJ Lagway. I mean, you need to figure out a way to probably play him some and keep him there, because otherwise, if they fire Napier, does he hit?
He's gone.
The portal. Oh my goodness! Yeah. This guy is talented. He's 6'3", 240, speed. I mean, there would be everybody. Ohio State, Georgia. I mean, everybody would be after him if he hit the portal. So Florida's got a bright future. They just got to get past this year.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Kentucky. What do you think about Kentucky and their new quarterback, Brock Vandagriff, former 5-star Kentucky?
I think the reason he's not in Georgia is because he's not as good as that 5-star ranking says he is. And I think Kentucky's going to be the team that everybody beats. I mean, for the most part. I think Kentucky's headed for a bad year. I have to go back to my notes here. Their passing was dreadful last year. I think they're not upgrading talent at enough level. And when you add Texas and Oklahoma, I don't think it's enough in this new conference. I see them at probably 5-7 or 6-6, to be honest with you. When I run the schedule, it's not going to be all of a sudden now they're not able to play that Eastern the division teams they used to always play. That schedule changes. And I don't think they're going to find wins as easy as they used to.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with the contract that I forgot what's the head coach's name.
Stoops.
Yeah, with Stoops, with that contract that he has, how that's gonna with the automatic extensions, how that's gonna work now that those wins are harder to come by. But I agree with you there. I think Vanderbilt is okay, maybe, but he didn't beat out Beck, and so we'll see. But all right, South Carolina.
Now we get to the bottom tier of the conference.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about South Carolina?
Yeah, I think you're looking at like a 5-7. I mean, I think they're going to try to build this team around Lenore Sellers, a quarterback, more of a running quarterback. I think the offensive line's a big question mark. Maybe they've upgraded with what's Rocket Sanders at quarterback, but I just don't see them. Their schedule, I mean, good grief. They do have to play, LSU, Ole Miss, Bama, Oklahoma, A&M, Missouri, Clemson. It's going to be hard to get to 6-6 in a bowl game. I think they're probably 4-8 or 5-7.
Yeah, I agree with you. They do have that one insanely fast guy that they brought in. I'm forgetting his name, but he tried out for the Olympics. He was so fast. I don't know. I forget his name. And anyway, yeah, they got a couple talented players, but it's probably this is more building for next year, I would say.
Yeah.
Beamer seems to be a nice guy, but you can't. South Carolina is almost impossible to succeed at. So
no, and they're just not. They're not getting enough. Again, this is a new SEC. You add Texas and Oklahoma, and then just that means there's more losses for more teams, and they're unfortunate. I think they're going to receive some of those.
Yep. Same thing with the next team here, Arkansas.
Yeah. I mean, Sam Pittman seems like a great guy. I think he's on the hot seat. That seems to be where everyone in the country thinks so. They're going to be, look at October 12th on their bye week. I mean, they could have already lost. They could be 3-3 at that point. You get to the bye week in November 9th. Could they be 4-4? He could be gone at that point. I mean, you've already got Bobby Petrino as the offensive coordinator. Is he just waiting there to finish out the year? They got a good defensive line, but can they do enough? You look at both sides of the ball were rough last year, both on, rushing offense, passing defense. I mean, there's just not. What is our, one of the podcasts you and I both love, Cover 3, but Elliott always says sometimes you just have to fire a coach to reset the boosters' expectations. I mean, this is just one of them. Is this what's going to happen here? I don't know.
And it's unfortunate because I think Sam Pittman is really a great match for Arkansas. And I think if they just kept him around, I think he'd probably have a good season every 3 or 4 years. But a good season every 3 or 4 years is not enough to satisfy boosters, even though that may be the max that Arkansas can achieve as a program.
But a realistic assessment is in this SEC with 16 teams now, everybody can't be 9-3, 8-4, or 10-2. There are teams that are going to have to be 4-8. And I mean, we know Vanderbilt's going to be at the bottom. Mississippi State's probably at the bottom, but there's got to be other teams there. And I don't think you tell who are the teams that you're going to say, I'll sign me up. I'll be at the bottom.
Yeah. You basically there's a lot of teams that are as a program, they think they should be 8-4 every year, and they're going to be 4-8.
And I think Arkansas is probably one of them.
Arkansas is one of those teams.
I don't think the ceiling's very high for them, this year or most years.
Yep. Same thing with Mississippi State. I like Jeff Lebby. I think he's a great. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. Mike Leach is no longer with us. I loved Mike Leach. He was my favorite. In the intro there were so many Mike Leach clips to choose from. I picked 2, but there are many more of sound bites of him. I like Jeff Lebby. I think he's a fantastic offensive coordinator. I like the Baylor system, the old Baylor offense, the veer and shoot is mathematically just fantastic system in college football. It just works. But the problem is there's so much less talented than everybody else. And Mississippi State historically, I think they're the only SEC program with a losing record historically in conference, or a losing record overall historically. They're just not going to be competitive in most of their games, I would think. There is, I think, a possibility that they could upset one of the mid-tier teams if their offense has a good day. But I see them finishing, probably above Vanderbilt, but maybe above no one else in the conference.
Yeah, they've got, again, I think Jeff Levy's probably pretty talented. This is an impossible situation. The talent's just not there compared to almost everybody other than Vandy. They've got 3-9 written all over.
Yep.
And then leaves us with
we come.
Vandy.
Yes, leaves us with Vanderbilt.
Now,
What are we thinking here?
Again, I think they got a smart coach in Clark Lee. I think he's trying to do all the right things. They're just limited in resources, limited in the recruits they're bringing in. They were rated by a lot of other teams when their players become good.
Yeah,
they're stolen by other Power 5 programs. So they have been hurt. You look at their metrics. The metrics are just bad on both sides of the ball last year. I just don't know. They're not. And then you add the Texas and Oklahoma factor. I don't think things get better for them. The schedule just gets harder. I mean, there's not easy wins to find on this program. I'm praying that they'll be Virginia Tech on August 31st to start the season, but we'll see there. Even they're out of conference. Virginia Tech is not a gimme. Certainly not a gimme. It's probably a loss. So you find maybe Alcorn State, maybe they beat Ball State. That's about it. What are the other wins? So you're looking at 2-10, 3-9. And I think Clark Lee could be in trouble. Depends on if the administration wants to give him another year. And you're looking probably at the last place team in the SEC.
Yeah, I think for Vanderbilt, it might be time to start considering the option. Especially with the new teams being added, that's pretty much 2 automatic losses. I don't see them ever really, or at least year after year, beating Texas or Oklahoma. And it might just be better to go with an option guy, and then that way you can get a couple of upsets a year with the interesting scheme, and that way also your better players aren't rated by other teams because people don't want option quarterbacks or fullbacks really in the rest of the sport. So that might be a way to retain some talent and field possibly competitive team, but it's just hard to overcome the talent disadvantage. And isn't there half their stadium being it doesn't even matter, their stadium's being redone, but it doesn't even matter because they never fill it. So it's Vanderbilt's in there in the SEC for baseball.
That's right. So basically, so they're there for all the other sports. So what are our friends at the Cover 3 podcast always say? You take the checks, you take the losses. Somebody's got to take the losses. So and again, not everybody can be 11-1 or 10-2. Just the math doesn't work. I'm going to save my teams for the SEC that are going to make the playoffs. I'm going to save from our playoff podcast. So, because I do have some very specific teams I think will make the playoffs, but I think the team that's going to win this conference are 2 teams that are in the SEC title game are going to be Texas and Georgia, and I think Georgia beats Texas in the SEC. What do you think?
Interesting. I think it's Georgia and Ole Miss.
Okay.
And I think Georgia wins. I mean,
we're really going chalk here, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's chalk, but Georgia's just so loaded. It's ridiculous.
Now, the only thing I'll say is what's going to get interesting, and I know we want to finish this up soon because we don't want to go too long. There is a theory out there that if you may be better off losing your conference championship game and getting the 5 seed than getting the 1 or 2 seed. I mean, I've heard Josh.
Yeah, I've seen that scheme where you end up with the easier route because you play you play a group of 5 and a.
You get Liberty at 12, and then you get. I mean, there's a path.
Yeah, there's a path, but
so I mean, I'm not counting that in. I'm just saying, let's pick the championship game. Let's pick who's going to win it, who we think are the best teams.
Yeah, and also I think I don't think the conferences would let that slide if you started game theorying it out like that. Conferences love the championship game is the big money maker. So maybe somebody tries it, but I mean, you want that bye, you want that automatic you want the bowl game appearance. So I don't know.
I've got Georgia beating Texas to be the SEC champion. They will represent the SEC in the playoff, and then I'll tell you my other playoff teams from the SEC in our playoff preview and national championship podcast. I've got a couple of things. Coach of the year will be Steve Sarkisian in Texas.
Okay.
I think our player of the year in the SEC is Carson Beck. And I've got 4 coaches getting fired because nobody's going to stay. This conference never stays still.
Okay.
I've got, as you would expect, I've got Billy Napier gone, Pittman gone. I think Clark Lee's gone. And here's my shocker. I've got Shane Beamer being gone as well. I think he's going to be on the hot seat.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard a couple things like that. But I'm not 100% sure about Beamer being gone. I think he's too popular there, and being a nice guy is just going to buy him another year, in my opinion.
I love all those coaches. I think they're all great people. I don't want to see any of them gone. I think they're too good for football in the conference, but I'm just making predictions here. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, I think Napier and Pittman are for sure gone unless one of them pulls out a miraculous season. And I think I don't really know about Clark Lee. Maybe he's gone, but also, like, what are your expectations of Vanderbilt? So, like,
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I also have Georgia going. I think the player of the year will be Quinn Ewers.
Okay.
I think, yeah, he'll put up fantastic numbers. And so I got Georgia going. I think coach of the year, I think it'll be probably Lane Kiffin. I think Lane Kiffin.
Well, I think Lane gets him to the championship game. I think he probably would be coach of the year. So.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. But yeah, that's kind of my predictions.
Okay.
And
well, good.
Yeah.
Well, we got the SEC, so we got all our predictions on the table. We'll get to the playoffs later, and next up will be what, Big Ten for us later in the week.
Yeah, Big Ten coming Wednesday, I think.
We'll record Wednesday evening, I think, is the game plan.
That's the plan. We'll be live right here on Wednesday evening.
All right.
Let's talk about the Big Ten.
We have any questions in the chat?
Nope. I don't think so. We have no more questions, but I would just like to say thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe on all your favorite platforms. We follow on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Instagram and Twitter. I've got all the links to all the sites on all the different ones. So just pick your favorites. The Hoppy Huddle on almost everything. At Real Hopster on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you Wednesday.